On December 23rd at 6:10 p.m., the Lakeland Police Department responded up to the Golden Corral restaurant in reference to assisting EMS with a medical call. When we got there, we discovered a 22-day-old infant inside the vehicle that was unresponsive. That child was taken to the Lakeland Regional Medical Center and later pronounced deceased. The parents had came down from Indiana to visit a family. They earlier checked in at the Comfort Inn on 98 North, and at that time the mother checked the infant that was in a baby seat, checked her feet, and her feet felt cold, so she put a blanket over the feet. She said the child at that time did respond to some extent with her feet. They went straight to the Golden Corral restaurant to meet their friends and family. When they got there, she once again checked the infant's feet. They were cold. She felt something was wrong, and that's when they called EMS, and we discovered that the child was deceased. Also in the vehicle was two other children, both siblings. One was 1 year of age, a male, and a 2-year-old female. Both of them appeared in good health. They are now in the custody of DCF as this investigation continues. The very next day, on December the 24th, the medical examiner performed an autopsy on the infant, and they concluded that the manner of death for that child was malnutrition through starvation. I can tell you, as you've read through the affidavit, and you can see that little Betsey at no time had any chance of survival based on what you've just read. Malnutrition through starvation is a very severe form of pain, a very severe form of child neglect and abuse. It's prolonged. We're not talking a matter of hours, we're talking a matter of days that this child was starved. At this time, I'm going to turn this over to Assistant Chief Mike Link. He's going to go through investigation with a little bit more detail and explain to you the timeline from there.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning. Just to follow up what Sergeant Grosses says, the autopsy of the victim's body was performed by Dr. Vera Volnick of the Medical Examiner's Office here in Polk County. During the examination, it was determined that the victim's weight at death was 4 pounds and 1 ounce. Dr. Volnick noted that a normal weight for the victim should have been approximately 8 pounds for her age, yet she had lost 2 pounds 9 ounces since birth during the 22 days she was alive. Upon conclusion of the autopsy, Dr. Volnick determined the victim's cause of death was starvation due to neglect and that the manner of death was homicide. With that information in mind, on Monday, December 29th, Detectives Brian Wallace and Neil Roberson from the Lakeland Police Department Criminal Investigations Section met with prosecutors with the State Attorney's Office Homicide Unit and representatives from the Medical Examiner's Office to further discuss this case. During this meeting, it was determined that to charge Ruby Angeline Stephens and Roy Allen Stephens with the first-degree murder of their daughter, Ruby Kee Stephens, born December 1st, 2014. Detectives quickly completed arrest warrants for the defendants and worked into the night and the early morning hours of December 30th, until which time the defendants were located and arrested at Howard Johnson's in Winter Haven, Florida, with the assistance of the Winter Haven Police Department. In my nearly 30 years as a law enforcement officer, I've never seen such an atrocious and appalling crime as this. When parents are given the precious gift of a child, they should be there at all times to ensure they are healthy, nourished, and all their needs are met. In this instance, the defendants failed Ruby miserably, and there's no doubt in my mind that Ruby Stephens suffered tremendously during the short 22 days of her life. To give you an idea, I was able to view the photographs taken of Ruby Stephens, and I can tell you that they shook me to my very core. A crime committed against anyone grabs the attention of everyone in the community, but in this instance, a crime of this nature shocks the conscience of the entire community and those involved with investigating the case. In conclusion, I'd like to thank Detective Brian Wallace and Detective Neil Robinson for their hard work and long hours that they put into this case. I'd also like to thank the State Attorney's Office, Medical Examiner's Office, and the Winter Haven Police Department for the assistance and teamwork they provided to us. At this time, I'll stand for any questions that you may have.
Betsey was not a child, boy. How much did that play?
It's undetermined at this time now, Ken. Obviously, the investigation is going to continue on, and we hope to uncover a little bit more information with that, as we were able to interview maybe some more relatives, some more witnesses to this situation. So again, I'm not able to answer that. I'm not able to provide you a definitive answer, but you are correct that she was not the biological child of Roy.
In the affidavit here, it says that the father was paying attention to the baby. It looked like his role in this was just giving care and didn't want to know about the baby.
You can only presume that. As indicated in the paperwork, the obvious infidelity did cause some strain on the marriage, as indicated by the detectives in the affidavit. It did appear to cause some problems, and Roy did not pay the attention to the child as you would feel that most fathers or maybe a stepfather would to the child. Yes.
Looking at the baby, is there any doubt in your mind at all that the parents had to know that the baby had to be struggling for its life?
There's no doubt in my mind. As I said earlier, I saw the photographs. We certainly did not want to portray that to you all, and I don't want to show them to the public, to be quite honest with you. They're very disturbing. Very disturbing. When I saw the photographs, again, as I said, it shook me to my core because in 30 years I've never seen anything like that. It's very apparent. It would be very apparent to anyone who saw the photographs or saw this child. They would know that this did not occur, as Sergeant Gross said, overnight or in days. In my opinion, this child suffered from day one of birth to the time that she passed away.
The other children that left in?
From all accounts that we can tell, they were both very healthy, well taken care of. There were no issues observed when they were examined by DCF or our guys when we looked at them and everything, so they appeared to be very healthy and well taken care of.
Did Ruby indicate to you guys at all that this was, it seems very obvious that she tried to mislead police by saying it seemed fine earlier that day, but did she indicate to you at all that this is, maybe this is just your opinion, that this was her plan from day one? You know, maybe this baby wasn't planned, and this was sort of her way to...
There were no statements made by Ruby in relations to that. She did recant some of her statements, as you've seen in the affidavits later on when she was interviewed again, the second time I believe, where she changed her story somewhat, but there was no indications that this was a planned event on her behalf or Roy's.
But this child was pretty much neglected.
Yeah, if you saw the photographs, you would say this child was, in my opinion, neglected from day one since birth to the time that she passed away. The pictures are absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible, guys. I mean, it really is. I would not want to show them to you. I would not want to show them to the public. Yes?
Is there any indication that the family saw the child at any point? Certainly because they saw the child within their means, so the family's obvious that the child was neglected.
You talking about other family members beyond?
That they were in town visiting, or?
I don't have any information to lead me to believe that they did. I would have to speak with the detectives to see if they had developed any additional information. Again, we're going to be continuing this case on. We'll be talking to other relatives, other people that may have been around them to fully support this case going forward for prosecution.
Ben, I can help you a little bit on it. The other family members that they were going to meet at the Golden Corral, they went to the wrong Golden Corral, so they never saw the child at all.
Thanks.
With this father not being the biological father, how difficult would it be to prosecute a case like this, seeing that he might have been in the presence of the child quite a bit, but not necessarily directly the responsibility of that father?
Right. It's a challenging case in and of itself, but the state attorney's office obviously saw where there was a definitive light to move forward prosecution of this case in a first-degree murder case. It'll be challenging, but we have faith in the state attorney's office. Assistant State Attorney Paul Wallace has been involved with this case pretty much since day one. They're all, again, challenging, but we feel confident that we can get a successful prosecution out of this.
Does the biological father have any responsibility in this?
I'm not aware of any contact being established with the biological father. I don't know if we even know who the biological father is at this point.
Is the husband the father of the other two children?
Yes, it's my understanding he is.
The children are 1 and 2, I understand. Is there any way to, can the 2-year-old give you any kind of statements as to how often this baby was being fed or not fed?
I'm going to venture to say probably not. It's a very young age to try to get any type of investigative interview with a child that young. We will explore all of our options when it comes to this case, but right now I would see that probably be as being a limited type situation.
Tell me about the doctor's appointment that she had scheduled for December 18th, and she never went to that appointment. What was the reason for the appointment, and did she give a reason for why she didn't go?
Basically just stated that she couldn't make the appointment. There was no further elaboration from what I can tell looking at the paperwork to indicate why she didn't go to the appointment.
Originally, she said that she was feeding the baby periodically. Can you tell us what her original statement was, and then she recanted her version?
I know there was some indication that
They talked about, I remember feeding the child and stopping at different rest stops and truck stops along the way to Florida, so.
it indicates in here, Ken, that it says during the trip they would stop every 30 minutes to an hour so that they could let the children use the restroom and feed the victim if necessary. In the case of the,
What do you think of that kind of statement?
well, I think it's false. There was indications from the medical examiner's report that indicated that there were, don't want to get this incorrect here. Upon examining the victim's digestive system, it was discovered that the victim had not been fed for approximately 6 to 7 hours prior to death. So you have professional scientific evidence, basically from Dr. Volnick, that examined the body by examining the context of the digestive system in the stomach that refuted pretty much what was said by the mother, which I believe she said that she had fed the child 1 hour prior to getting to Lakeland. So that fully disputes that fact. That's something that we're going to take, that's further investigation. I'm sure we'll get in contact with the hospital, get any type of records that we can on the child, so we can review them and see exactly what the state of health was for the child when she was let go from the hospital.
But not totally healthy.
That's what I don't have any further to give you on that until we get the paperwork maybe from the hospital to see what they meant by that exact term, not exactly healthy. Recalling from the birth of my children, you are correct. I don't, it's been a long time ago, but you have certain appointments set up. You have certain appointments set up, yes, after the child is born to go back to a doctor. But you can obviously see that from her own statements, she didn't have.
Later, it seems like in the second interview, that is when you maybe became aware of the fact that this father was not the biological father. When was that disclosed, and when was it that you became suspicious that what they were telling you was not the case? Was it after the medical examiner backed it up and such?
It raises our suspicion, obviously, by him not being the biological father, and coupled with the information, like you said, from the medical examiner's office, it raises concerns in our mind. We, again, as I said earlier, we don't have anything to direct us to that path to actually say that was the reason for the death. Again, further investigation will hopefully uncover some additional facts to solidify one way or another why this had happened.
Are you working with any investigators up in Indiana to find out through friends and neighbors and things like that what might have been happening?
That will be a normal course, yes, to reach out to folks up there in that community to find out, any problems with the family up there, any contact, etc. So it's an ongoing fluid investigation still, even though we've made arrests. There's still a lot of work to be done as far as follow-up, so we can make sure that we bring this to a successful prosecution for the child.
The family members keep on hearing about the wall right now, but of course, there is that they don't about suspicious of problems with the couple or their children.
There's been none relayed to me, and I don't see any indication in the affidavit or paperwork at this point in time to reflect that.
I didn't see it mentioned here. I mean, if you make
Well, it's a capital felony, first-degree murder, so it's usually life or death. Obviously, it will be taken before a grand jury to seek an indictment, and then they will proceed from there.
And back to the father's role or lack of maybe in this, he's not the biological father. Were there any statements made by mom that he had prompted her not to take better care of the baby? And was he saying, don't feed the baby right now?
There's none that's been revealed to me at this point in time. I think that would be clearly depicted if we had that evidence for those type of statements. They would have been recorded here somewhere in the documents, but I don't have that information. It's not been revealed to me.
I apologize if you covered this already, but did this mother say anything in her own defense or in the past to try to explain what happened to the baby?
No, not really. If you read the contents of the affidavit, I mean, basically with the doctor's appointment, I just didn't have time to take the child to the doctor's appointment. There was a sense of lack of concern, in my opinion, by reading the documents and talking to the detectives about this case.
It's obvious that this has taken some sort of emotional toll on you as you speak. You being a parent yourself, talk about how this is.
Well, being a parent, as I said earlier, when parents are bestowed a child or given the gift of a child, it's our responsibility to take care of them, make sure all their needs are met, and make sure no harm comes to them. We are responsible for them. And as I said, these folks, they failed miserably to take care of this child. She suffered tremendously over the 22 days that she was alive. She had to have to meet this kind of demise. There are cases that I have worked and all these gentlemen here have been involved with, along with the detectives here, that you remember as you go through your career, and they trigger certain thoughts in your mind. But when it comes to the death of a child, especially in this manner, it will stick with you forever. You will forever remember this when you leave this job 30 years down the road. That will always stick in your mind, and it will always pull at your heartstrings, as I say, because this was senseless. There was no need for this. This child was starved to death. Can you imagine the pain and suffering that she went through? This child couldn't defend herself. She's helpless. She's 22 days old. And these folks had the responsibility to take care of her, and they didn't do what they should have done as parents.
No, I apologize for, I will land I know you covered this ground. In essence, can you tell us the story again? There's no, I know, there's no arrested, this is murder.
Right.
How did this happen? How did two adults starve a baby?
That's the million-dollar question. The answer to why. I'll be glad to speak with you offline afterwards if you want to recant the whole thing, if that would be all right with you. That way we don't hold everybody up, but I'll be glad to make myself available after her to do individual comments, whatever you need. I just hate to hold everybody up from going through that. But that's the question. Right now, I'm sure all of you are asking why. We're standing up here asking, why did this happen? It doesn't have to happen. They should have taken care of this child, and they didn't. They failed miserably. And they should pay the full consequences of what the law can provide.
One last question. How long were the couple in together?
That I don't have the information on, I'm sorry.
And the one in Peterborough in state custody right now?
They're in the custody of DCF, and as I said earlier, they appeared to be well taken care of and healthy.
Either parent.
Are you going to release the names, addresses of the
I don't even know if we have those in the reports and everything here, Ken. I would.
No, I've talked with the detective. I mean, this is still, like Assistant Chief Michaeling said, very much ongoing. There's a lot to do. There's some follow-up that they want to do, and so those names and addresses will be withheld until they complete that investigation.
We would like to have the opportunity to get with them and at least get some type of interview locked in, so to say, or get some comments from them before we start publishing information like that.
So are they from Lakeland? Is that fair to say? Or?
I believe they're from the Lakeland area.
Okay.
Yeah.
You sort of alluded to this, but did either of these two parents show any remorse in these interviews?
Well, talking to the detectives who did the interview, no. If you look at the report, the initial event report that was done by the officers that arrived on scene when we first got the call, you will note that one officer said that Roy basically showed no emotion at all. None. And the mother was kind of in and out. That's highly suspicious, as I'm sure you can tell. If it's your child that passes away like that, I'm going to be out of my mind. I can't control myself. That's my child. I just lost my child. Whether it's my biological or not, I was in charge of taking care of that child, and I just lost that child, and you're standing there showing no emotion. So it's definitely highly suspicious.
These people been on your radar before, officer? I mean,
arrested for anything else with that?
No, they're from out of state. They're from Indiana, so not aware of them. Any more questions? Again, thank you all for coming today and covering this story for us. I'm sorry.